Hello and welcome back to episode 56 of the Nordic Takedown podcast. You're listening to the Nordic Takedown podcast. I'm Jonah and I'm going to be here today with Adam.
Hello. It's been a time since we did one just on our own.
Yeah.
So this is going to be some nice banter here, and
And we have a pretty good topic today, talking about bigger tournaments.
Yes, that we are, and a little bit everything around bigger tournaments.
Exactly. We've talked a bit about it before.
Things, right? Yeah, that we have, but this will be a little bit more smaller details,
and we kind of got the motivation because we're both going on some in the upcoming weeks.
Yes, that we are. Spoiler alert, or we are definitely going to Lille.
Yeah, that's super exciting. So
what's more on the agenda for the day?
Yeah. Before we deep dive into all about tournaments, let's take a quick look at the news, because there's been a lot of PQ stuff since the dates have been announced.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Let's maybe start with the Cantina catch-up. Has anything happened with you in the zoo life this week?
Mostly playing for Malmö, because that's the first one. We are, I think you and I are both going to Malmö, Skövde, Lille.
Yeah.
Right. So we have basically the same tournament schedule coming up.
Yeah.
So right now it's basically playing for Malmö. So that has been my main focus. And then I've done some side. I was actually on a small local Lorcana tournament yesterday.
Nice.
Got to borrow a deck. It was not completely optimized, so I bricked quite hard with the resourcing there. Since in Lorcana you only you draw one card, but you still resource one, as in Star Wars. But some of the cards are not resourceable, so I was just sitting there with a bunch of cards I couldn't resource. Which is I'm very glad that Star Wars Unlimited doesn't have that system. Where I love that you can resource everything, and I really appreciate the smuggle mechanics even more while trying this. Like, at least, I can play from this when you've bricked a little bit. How about you?
The same. I haven't really been playing too much. Been a bit busy just with my master's thesis that I'm writing and kind of planning all the trips. Actually, I'm going on a trip to France by train and bus, kind of in between Malmö and Skövde. So I'll be arriving with the night train in Sweden and going directly to the
from the station to the store.
Yeah. So it's been a lot of organizing that, but I am starting to settle on my deck. I'm going from Trondheim down to Oslo first, where most of my collection is, my parents' place. So I'm gonna just have a pit stop, shove some cards together in a pile, and okay, that's what I bring.
So, and then, like, that is the first trip. Then you're going a few weeks later to another trip to France. Are you doing that by train as well? Or are you flying?
I am flying one way, Oslo, Paris.
Yep.
And then I think Paris has a 50-minute train or something to Lille, which is pretty good. And then on my way back, I'll be taking the train too.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's gonna be exciting. Hopefully, I won't be too sad about that decision after this first trip. Like spending how many days? 4 days or something total on the road. Oh, but it's gonna be cool.
It should be fine, and like, even if it feels a little bit meh on the first trip, the regionals in Lille is going to be a completely different kind of tournament. So that is. I am slightly sad that we don't get that I don't get to go to Milano this weekend.
Yeah.
Because it feels like that's just the first taste.
Mm.
It's not been one in the US, nothing. So the Europeans will get the
Yeah.
first taste of the big thing, and we're missing out. But still really excited by Malmö.
Yeah, exactly. We
For
have
sure.
something. We have regionals at home.
Yes, exactly. Close to.
That's the name of this episode. We have regionals at home.
Yeah.
So this episode is gonna air 2 days before Malmö. So it's still possible to get your tickets, guys. Would be
Yep.
really cool to see you guys there. And great pricing, especially for how many people have signed up so far on Melee at least.
Yep. I
So
think there is a little bit more than the ones on Melee,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely great pricing, even if 30 players more sign up.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah,
the event is run basically like a PQ. Like it's a 1 day Swiss plus top cut, top 8.
super cool.
So it's gonna be nice.
Yeah.
Same is said to about Mana Torsk event the 12th of April.
Yeah.
Also ran the same way.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
but we got some pretty nice announcement today about the PQs, Jonah.
Yeah, that's true. Yet again, we have the same amount of Scandinavian PQs, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I had hoped we would get maybe one more to Sweden or something. But I'm not saying that because I'm Swede, but we are the largest country, and we have been actually having some homemade, pretty solid tournaments in both Malmö and Skövde. So maybe next set or set after that.
And this time, there's new stores that have these events.
Yes.
Next Level Games in Denmark, Dragon Slayer in Stockholm, Tabletop Battle in Moss, actually, a bit south of Oslo.
Yeah. That would have been so nice to go to, but I'm missing it.
Yeah.
That store is so nice.
Yeah, and they've renovated, I think, so it's even better now.
Nice.
And I'm in touch with the store owner, so we will be streaming.
Nice.
Or can already say so.
Cool. We'll see if I get allowed to cast a game or two on the road on the honeymoon. Probably not, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, I think there will be other tournaments, right? But there's only one honeymoon, so
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, and then in Finland, it's On My Game.
Yeah, that's the same as last.
It's the same actually. Yeah.
It's I think it's a store just outside of Helsinki or in Helsinki.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So sadly, the Danish and Finnish one is on the same day.
Yep. So there is nobody that can go and win all four.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a little bit sad. But on the other hand, if there was two that should have been on the same, maybe it should have been Denmark and Finland. They're the farthest apart.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think should probably be fine.
Yeah. And the dates are kind of spread out here. The Stockholm one is actually the week after Lille.
Yeah.
So that's pretty soon. Like
it's pretty soon. And yeah, it might affect the number of people that can join because a lot of people might go to Lille. Hard to take 2 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
I've been banned from it.
Yeah.
But it's still Stockholm, so it's still going to be a big event.
And the one in Norway is actually reported on the wrong date on the official website. It should be Saturday, the 21st of June.
Yeah.
So way later.
Yeah, way later. Yeah, it's all between early May and late June, or like that's when these events are being held.
Yeah. And we're gonna get back to that on the topic later. Going to an event early in the meta or late is quite different sometimes.
Definitely.
But
we wanted to shout out some PQs that if these Scandinavian ones doesn't really align with your date or schedule, there are some countries that are not that difficult to travel to, either by plane or train.
Yeah. So, for instance, you could consider going to some in Germany because there's a pretty great train connection from Sweden. The night train going, for instance, to Hamburg, and from Hamburg you could get to Lübeck on the 14th of June, there's a PQ very
Yep.
close there, or in Berlin.
Yep. Night train from Stockholm to Berlin. Pretty easy. I, of course, don't know the cost yet, but very likely if their tickets don't sell out, that you're going to meet me in Berlin, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then if you travel that way, you can go from Berlin very easily to Prague, for instance.
yep.
There's one
Which is going to be
end of
the
May.
first PQ in Czech Republic, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Which is going to be nice. It's cool that they're experiment. I think both Czechia and Slovakia got one this time, and I don't think they've gotten one before.
Nice.
So that's very nice.
Yeah. And then there's 3 in Poland, not too
Yep.
far, often pretty cheap flights, or even possible to travel through Germany with train and bus.
Yeah. Maybe Warsaw is the one. No, sorry. Warsaw is okay. That's pretty north, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and Gdansk is also, I know, very cheap flights from Norway at least.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Poznan. I was thinking about Krakow. That's the one that's more south,
Yeah.
which would have been rougher with the
Yeah.
train.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then
So yeah, that's
the Netherlands
stuff.
is also possible, I guess.
Yeah. It's when you get to Amsterdam, it's pretty close to most things in the Netherlands, and Amsterdam is pretty accessible for many.
Yep. Yes. Should we? I don't think there's any more details about.
New sectors or regionals?
Yeah.
No, not yet. I think that will probably be announced like in a month or something.
Yeah.
Depending on the. They might even want to know how this first event goes.
Yeah, of course.
Before,
and I think they
see how
said that
many
there
signs
won't
up.
be anything else before Galactic Championship.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
So it's going to be just so exciting to see how these tournaments go.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that kind of brings us to the main topic.
Yeah, just short. So if you want to go to sector regionals before the Galactic, it is Milano, Liverpool, and Lille. If you're a European,
Yeah,
that's your choices. But yeah, bigger tournaments.
Yeah. So if you've played some Stars Unlimited now, you might be familiar with the showdowns, the PQs, sectors and regionals, the whole system. But as we've seen now in Sweden, we also sometimes have other people host bigger tournaments.
Yeah, definitely.
So we thought maybe since we are going now to talk a bit about everything around it, traveling, preparing your deck, what to do on the day. Yeah, just some tips and kind of our experiences as well.
Yeah. So where do we start off here in the big picture?
I mean, first you kind of have to plan how to get there.
Yeah. Like most people go by plane if it's possible. You and I are choosing trains often for different reasons. One for environmental issues and one for phobias.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you're going train, you have to be planning a little bit more.
Yeah.
I would say a little bit more in advance, maybe.
And from my experience, I can actually really recommend Flixbus. They have a lot of great connections. For instance, when I've been attending the Copenhagen PQ, I've been taking the bus straight from Oslo. Super chill. You go there, there's Wi-Fi. Yeah, you just have to...
Flixbus usually has pretty good seats to sleep in as well.
Yeah, I've been only taking the day bus so far. But I'm going to be able to report back on this after my trip now, because directly after Malmö, I'll be taking the night bus to Amsterdam.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Let's find out then after that. I think one thing that I usually try to do while planning these trips is like depending on the how far I'm going. Like,
Yeah.
can I do something else as well?
Yeah.
Like in the cities, like for example, if uh, if I would like to go to PQ to Berlin, but maybe it feels like it's not worth just to go to do that. But is there
Yeah.
something else happening in Berlin that would be fun as well,
Yeah.
or like in Malmö or in Oslo? For example, when we went to Oslo, we made this made it make basically a Nordic takedown weekend with some twin suns and like stuff like that. Made more of it than just the tournament.
Yeah.
Of course, regionals in Lille is just more than a tournament in itself. But
Yeah.
like if you are doing the
Yeah.
PQs,
I think that's always nice to kind of get two birds in one stone. Is that a saying?
yeah, uh, yeah, yeah. In Sweden, we say two flies
Yeah.
in one
Smack.
hit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I can recommend that to try to plan ahead. See if you maybe know someone in the community. That's really great with the Scandinavian community.
yeah,
Being able to meet people, and yeah, even if you know someone personally, you could save a bit on accommodation. And that's
yeah,
kind
and
of
it's
the next
nice.
bullet on the
Yeah,
planning, because you want to know how to get there. But if there's a full day event and you have a longer travel, you probably need some place to sleep. Or even if you're going to a 2 day event.
yeah. But maybe especially on a 2 day event. Sometimes on a 1 day event, you can get by being greedy, taking night bus or night trains,
Yeah.
or just drive, even though you shouldn't.
And that's kind of the budget option. For instance,
Yeah,
let's say if I lived in Oslo and I would want to attend Malmö qualifier,
yep,
then theoretically I could take the night bus, get there in the morning, play the tournament, and take the night bus back home. This
yeah. That's
way,
pretty cheap.
I would still have to pay for travel, but I would pay nothing for accommodation.
Yeah.
So
So that's not like, especially if you are living in Göteborg, Stockholm, Oslo, Malmö, you have easier to just put yourself on that bus and just go. There is no connections; you
yeah,
just go. But otherwise, it's probably a hotel or like bed and breakfast. You can
yeah,
plan it with other people to like do together.
yeah, that's
That
smart.
would be cheaper.
Get in the
Uh,
discords, find someone who's also going. Hotel rooms, they're almost always a 2 bedroom, so you can
yeah.
basically have half price off if you find a friend.
Yep. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty good, and like, or even better, like sometimes just like if you have been chatting or like talking to some people just offer you accommodation sometimes because you started to know people
yeah,
through Star Wars, just like you do in Copenhagen,
yeah.
crashing with Steven in his
I
chat.
had kind of a joke with some guys on the Discord that like they've been calling me the one with friends, but my ulterior
Yep.
motive this whole time has just been to get free accommodation and free rides.
Yeah.
No, actually, it was borrowing cards, I think, but that's another
Yeah.
topic.
That's another topic. Yeah. Uh,
But yeah, you can't really get around the fact that trips cost money,
yep.
and you have to just accept it that it's gonna cost a bit to go to these bigger events further away. Um, I know that you, Adam, like to kind of think with the reasoning that okay, if I get some nice prizes, it's kind of paying for the trip. But
Yeah, like as an alternative motive. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I think in general, it's probably smart to not let yourself down and just think of the price as a bonus if you do
Yeah.
well. But don't expect to kind of get a profit or something from going to bigger tournaments.
It's basically like if you, I'm not promoting online casino or like playing a casino, but if you go in for a casino night, right, with 3,000 or Swedish crown, 300 euros,
Yeah,
you should not be expecting to get out there with the money or more.
yeah,
You could, but like if that's your budget, then you should expect it that it can be empty and you should be okay with it being
yeah,
empty. um, And that's a little bit how I look at it. Like
Yeah.
this trip cost like this, I'm okay with this being that's just it and a great experience.
Yeah.
But if I win regionals, I'm definitely going plus. Or even if I go top eight, maybe it's a plus affair.
Yeah.
So, like example, the Oslo PQ and the Stockholm PQ, because I managed to sleep at friends at both places, so
Yeah.
it was basically the travel cost, and I won both PQs.
Yeah.
So I made a profit on those trips.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
but
that's
it's a
one
bonus.
out of many
Yes,
attendees kind of.
exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone cannot do that, so that's why it should be a bonus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe if you're very competitive, it can be like a motor to why to practice.
Yeah.
But it also depends on, like, if you're going to an event just to have the fun, maybe to the prize wall, not being too competitive, then you absolutely need to uh, accept that trips cost money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you're planning everything, it's very easy to see, oh shit, this is gonna be expensive. All of these things accumulate, but think of going on a trip for anything else. It also costs money, and
Yeah,
it's a great experience. Like these events, it's so different from going to a showdown or just a local scene. It's really something else, and very very fun.
yeah, and especially these, we haven't had many of these in Star Wars. These 2 days events,
Yeah.
we have that in Malmö, but this is going to be like completely different. And these 2 days events are usually, there's so much around it all, like
Yeah.
which makes it so nice. Like you, even the evening after the day, like going out, eating, talking, like with all the people you've gotten to know
Yeah.
during the day. Um, that just so much more
Yeah.
than the game,
Yeah.
especially in these ones. In the showdown, it's mostly about the game,
Mm.
and then you go home
Yeah.
after a few hours. But this is more.
Yeah.
Um,
That's really cool. And then a last bullet on planning the travel, at least for me, is super important to bring food, because
yeah,
you can imagine taking an 8 hour train to now bus to Copenhagen. You need to stay alert, and you don't want to get there super exhausted, have a horrible night. Try to prepare a bit in advance. Of course, the earlier you prepare, the cheaper tickets you're gonna get, and also don't forget about food.
yeah, and the food, like, depending on if you're taking a 2 hour flight, you don't have to really. But if you are stuck in some places, then food is great. I think even more important than that is having food on the day.
Yeah, that's the kind of what the bullet was for too.
Yeah,
So maybe we will go directly to on the day as a segue there.
yeah. Uh, and I would say bringing food and water is pretty key. Like, of course, if you want to have Coca-Cola instead, do it, but it's gonna dehydrate you. Uh, so I would recommend water, and then maybe if you go far in the tournament or starting to get tired, then you could pop an energy drink or Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
But otherwise, some snack, because sometimes you're not going to get that big of a lunch break. Maybe the location is not in a perfect spot to just get food.
yeah,
Uh,
and like you're never gonna be uh, sorry for preparing too much. It's better to
yeah,
have a bag with some different food and snacks and then not eating all of it, rather than having a headache and your stomach growling
yeah,
and just not feeling your best.
yeah. I totally agree there. Like, you're going there to have fun, no matter if you're trying to win it or just have a good day. You don't want to end up having a headache because you didn't bring food or didn't get access to water. That's just stupid. So
Yeah. So
pack water.
a recommendation from Steven and I think it was in Oslo PQ. We ended up buying some snack carrots, and has become a staple ever since. That's always our go-to. Oh no, I think it was Copenhagen first. Yeah.
Well, it must have been the first
Yeah. Yeah.
Copenhagen or
Yeah. Yeah.
something. Yeah.
So ever since we always bring these carrots. So I can really recommend it because if you have some heavy food between rounds, you don't really want to start munching down your big
No.
sandwich, but just having some light, nice things to snack on is quite nice.
Yeah, I think that's probably smarter than power bars, which I usually use with like a little bit extra chocolate. Uh, but yeah, anything basically that gives you a little bit of a pump
Yeah,
in between rounds, and uh,
yeah,
then don't cheap out on your meal. Like if you bring your own, that's great, but don't make a small lunch because the day
yeah,
you're not getting dinner at the event. You get one,
yeah,
you get one big break.
exactly.
That's the
Yeah.
one.
Okay, so now we got the bare necessities down,
Yeah,
other than your deck, maybe.
exactly. Yeah.
Cards are the most important. We're gonna get touch more about how to kind of prep your deck and all that stuff, but when it comes to the practical side, bringing damage markers is really important.
Yeah.
And
Or
having,
dices if you,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
depending on how you prepare.
yeah.
Yeah.
Playmat, I guess, is not required, right?
No, many of the events has like playmats. I don't think it's required. You can play on the empty table.
Yeah.
I think for me it feels a lot. My feeling, my happiness feeling goes down if I don't
Yeah. I mean,
have a
if
playmat.
you're listening to this
It's,
podcast, you probably enjoy playing with the playmat too.
yeah.
But
Uh, but it's
s-
not a law or
yeah,
requirement for the game. You can show up. What you need is your deck and your
yeah.
tokens or dice, something to keep track of the game state,
And
basically.
opaque sleeves, right? So you can't see the backside of the card.
Yes, unless it's some of the Game Genic, the approved ones. I
Okay.
think some of them you can see through. I
Yeah.
don't think they should be allowed, but maybe they are not allowed in big tournaments on sectors and regionals.
Yeah.
But if you want to be sure, make sure it's like completely sealed off,
Yeah.
basically.
And then something that maybe not that many people bring, but a notepad can be pretty nice if you're
Yeah,
playing a deck where you maybe get to see your opponent's hand, or you just in general like to keep track of some things.
yeah. A lot of people wants to keep track of the health that way. Maybe because like dices can be knocked out. Someone could like potentially like a lot of us use this flippable counters,
Yeah.
which can like be a misflip or something,
Yeah.
and then it's good if you have written it down. Of course, it takes a bit of brain power, and you are not allowed to like take extra time really to do these notes.
Yeah.
Not much, at least. It's not supposed to slow down the game,
Yeah.
so you need to be very efficient with it. I don't usually write down because I want to keep focus on the game,
Yeah.
at least the damage. But then you need to be extra careful looking when
Yeah.
people swap the damage
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then something I've brought to many tournaments is a headset. So if you're playing
Yes.
in a smaller venue, it can get really, really noisy, especially in kind of the later time of the round when people are finishing, starting to chat with each other, and maybe the time when you also want to try to relax a little bit. So then it can be nice
Yeah.
to just get in your zone.
Yeah, if you have an important game, it doesn't matter if you went there to like win it from the beginning, but you end up in a situation where you're let's say 4-1 and like 5-2s goes through, and you just need to you don't want distractions. You just put the headset on, and usually people get the point. You want to focus.
Yeah.
um, Other good things is just to grab some air, just go out.
Yeah.
To, if you know you have like, because at bigger events the rounds are set, like even though everyone is done usually, if it says 13:50, that's when it starts. So if it's 30:30, you can go on a 10-15 minutes walk and just reset
Yeah.
and come back a little bit more refreshed.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good advice actually, to take some breaks while you can, because sometimes your round will go overtime and you will basically be forced to go from a long
Table to table.
excruciating game straight into another one.
Yeah, and you just basically finishing up, and someone is standing there and like, hey, I'm playing on this table now, and you're like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
uh, which
So
is happened to me a few times in Copenhagen
Yeah.
at that PQ because I played
Three
three
bosses.
bosses in a row, and before that Akira, uh, and a pulp.
Oh,
So I was just constantly going table to table.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
those small chances, you don't basically even get to go to the bathroom then,
Yeah.
unless you ask for it and get some extra time.
Yeah.
So yeah, take care of that precious time. Unless you're a Sabine player or Kazudo, you will always get new time.
Yeah.
But for all of you others,
Yeah. And you mentioned time earlier too with like the notepad and stuff. And I think when you're playing these really long events, um, trying to be efficient during rounds is also advisable. I mean,
yeah,
it the advice kind of works for any best of three where you have a time limit, but try to be time efficient. Something I've noticed that I do is spend way too much time sideboarding.
yeah,
Sometimes the game's over. I shuffle, put my cards back. I pick up my sideboard. I find the cards I want in, and then I just sit there and like, oh shit, what am I going to take out? And I can't decide, and I realize I'm spending time for both
wasting
me and
time.
my
Yeah,
opponent that's not necessary, kind of.
yeah, and I feel like that is something about the knowing of your deck that you've selected. We're gonna get into that a little bit, but uh, when you select your deck, actually try to prepare, like in your head, your sideboard for the most common matchups, so you actually know what am I bringing out most of the times. Sometimes you could be surprised with some card, and then you actually have a good answer in your sideboard. So you should not just auto pilot it,
Yeah,
but like have a good understanding why and when your sideboard card is matters, and actually what to bring out, so you don't have tons of cards
yeah,
colliding with each other. Because that problem you had, Jonah, that's a lot of what I had in set one as well. I was just like, what do I have these great cards for this matchup, but which cards are bad,
yeah,
like, or not as good, so I need to pull them out.
yeah.
So
And I think that's kind of goes down to the way I build sideboards because I often
yeah,
focus very much on, okay, I want these cards for these matchups, so I kind of know the purpose for the cards in my sideboard. But
yeah,
I haven't necessarily thought about what cards in my deck are also these niche use cases and that
yeah,
might have to go out.
yeah, and like and that can sometimes be pretty hard, because if, let's say, you you put in like bunch of late game stuff for, like, let's say for a control, or you want to go heavier against the mid-range decks, like, then you have to, if you have 8 cards going in, like, you have to cut some 8 cards in the middle, like either your early rounds, or like maybe you have better late game cards, so you have to remove your current late game cards, uh, so you don't end up with a too heavy top deck and you sit there and can't play anything. um,
Hmm.
so the sideboard needs to be working with your deck. It's just not have to, it can't just work in theory, like in theory, uh, without some practice, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, so rolling back a little bit to being time efficient during
Yep.
your games, I think it's a good recommendation. Try to be quick, but still be clear in how you're playing. Like have some etiquette, show
Yeah.
you're exhausting your resources, show what card you're playing. It can be a bit frustrating sometimes when people are playing so fast you barely notice them exhaust some resources and they just slap the card in the event straight into the discard pile.
Yeah. I like to, when I play events, I like to just put them on the table, to the effect. I usually, when I play Overwhelming Barrage, Cunning, and Buff, I know people put it rightly in the discard pile, and I know exactly why, because it's a higher chance of the opponent forgetting that it's there.
Mm,
But I like to put it on so you can see that it's a temporary buff, or like that it's played, even if I play it fast. Like, for example, Surprise Strike, just put it there and do the damage. And when everything is resolved, I put it in
yeah,
the discard pile. I am, however, a perpetrator of just playing fast, exhausting, but because I want to be time efficient. I,
yeah,
I really don't want to go to time. And the only one I can really affect is me. So if I do my things super fast, at least I increase my chances. But
Yeah.
you still need to be clear with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So let's maybe then talk a bit about the time before going to the event, when it's
yeah,
all about preparing your deck.
yes, how to make the event successful.
Yeah. I mean, step one is be a good player.
Yeah,
And we
exactly.
can't teach that in
Okay.
the last 15 minutes here, I think.
No, no, probably not. And no, but that's one thing is also set up objective. What is your goal of the tournament?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because I think everyone can become better, and like you're not doomed to be trash like forever. If you're in the bottom, like you, sometimes it's like a reason why some people are in the bottom like that much is because they pick bad decks, and that is fine. And then
Yeah.
usually they don't expect either to go that very well. So you have to make a decision like, do I want to play something fun, something that I have created? And then what's my goal with that? Is it to go 3-3, 2-4? Or am I trying to win the event? So what am I then?
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
And as you said, um, bad deck, that's in the sense where we think about the meta decks, competitive.
yeah.
Like, you can still have a lot of fun with off meta stuff, but
Yeah.
in general, when we're talking about these bigger, larger events that you might pay a lot to travel to, it's with kind of a competitive focus, at least
Sense. Yeah.
from our side.
Yeah. So if you're playing for fun and just want to bring a deck, then no one is going to blame you. But we're just going to try to talk about like if you want to try to win or do well,
Yeah.
basically. So you teased it a little bit. You said it was with the selecting deck that it was different. It's different for you if it's in the beginning of the meta or in the end,
Yeah.
basically, or in the middle.
I think
So what do you mean?
personally, I really enjoy the time we're in now, and we got a new set. Everybody's exploring, seeing what we can do with these new cards, but it's kind of more difficult to prepare because you don't necessarily know what people are going to bring.
Yeah. There is not a lot of information out because it's not been any tournaments. We have no showdowns, no PQs.
Yeah.
Uh, in this time, it's been a TTI Invitational.
Yeah.
That's basically all. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, Maybe some stuff in the US that I haven't seen, but it's
Yeah.
not been any official stuff.
Yeah.
That's usually easily to track on the SVU competitive hub.
Mm.
Uh, so we have no raw data to go. So basically, it's all new innovations from this set and common knowledge from the last meta.
Yeah. But still, you can kind of uh, try to get some insight by, of course, looking at what's going on in all the online communities.
Yeah.
If you're in Discord servers, you can see what are the conversation going. There's a lot of content creators who are making videos, deck techs,
Yes.
so that will help prepare a little bit in the new meta. You will kind
Yeah.
of get the grasp for, okay, these leaders are very popular, but still, if you're going to a bigger tournament, probably you don't really know the local scene.
Yeah.
You don't know if is there a lot of control players, aggro. So I think um, this also connects to something we're going to talk about with like a comfort deck or a meta deck. I think in the start of a meta, it's often better to just pick something you're very comfortable with, something you've played a lot, a deck style that really fits you, and maybe a deck that you think has decent matchups into a lot.
Yeah. Uh, and maybe like as you said, like a deck that doesn't require as much to know what the meta is.
Yeah,
For example, control decks usually really like to know what is my highest chance of facing,
yeah,
because they can't have a control main board for everything.
yeah,
Um, they can have it for like so they want to have it for the broad like matchups,
mm,
so they can like have a good like the right control package for 75% of the meta,
mm,
and that is very hard to guess in the beginning. Um,
Yeah.
So if you're really good at predicting, then a control deck could be your thing. But if that's rough, then maybe you try to wait into the later stages of the meta
Yeah,
before you
and
play
I
the
think
control.
the exact thing you said there is probably the reason why we usually see less control in the beginning, and then
Yeah,
it kind of ramps up towards the later stage, and the
yeah,
last PQs might be like really control dominated, and then it goes back again. New aggro
yeah.
decks come and kind of a mid-rangey start.
But yeah. So when you choose, there is also kind of your play style, right, to take account. And like, what are you, an aggro, a combo, a mid range, or a control player? Because in the end, even if it's best to play aggro, if you don't enjoy it, you're probably not going to be as good as it either,
Yeah,
because you will not find it as funny to play and like find these small lines,
yeah,
because you enjoy a different part of the game.
mm,
So you should try to find the best deck that fits you.
mm,
uh, I would say, like, even if it's not the S tier deck, but it's better to play an A plus deck or an A tier if you enjoy it and actually like want to play it.
yeah,
That is like a little bit how I've been reasoning with, like, in my prep, that I don't enjoy playing Django.
mm,
Um, I'm not saying I'm not playing Django, but I don't enjoy him. So I've been trying first to find another really good deck
mm,
that isn't Django,
yeah,
basically,
yeah,
because I want to enjoy what I'm doing and the process of building a deck.
yeah.
Um, so that,
And that's a really fun part, like finding something you enjoy. Maybe you found some inspiration online, or it's a deck concept you even came up with yourself, and tinkering it, tuning, like you get a special kind of connection to the deck you're playing then,
yeah,
and it becomes way more fun.
uh, completely agree.
But I do think net decking is something you can learn a lot from as well.
Yeah,
Like don't be,
best way to get a jump start.
yeah, and when you're net decking, don't just take a list and uh, try to play it. Look at the list. Look at cards. Are the cards you're surprised to see? Are the cards you maybe don't like that you would rather change? Why would you change them? What cards would you add? Like all of these details will tinker and make your brain, your wheels turn kind of, and
Yeah,
it will kickstart that deck building process.
yeah, for sure. And I think we are quite lucky in Star Wars to have quite a lot of good S and A tier decks,
Yeah,
especially now since set 3 meta, and I think set 4 is going to continue in that way. So there are a lot of you to choose for you to
yeah,
choose from. Of course, that can also make it harder to single down what you want to play, because you might find, oh, all these 5 decks are really fun,
mm,
but I don't have the time, and which one is actually good, and
yeah,
But there is a high chance that it is actually a deck that you like that can be competitive, and that if you play it better than anyone else, then you can tilt the matchups in a way
yeah,
uh, that opponents doesn't really think of.
yeah. I think it's kind of a trap to look always for the next best deck and what's the best right now, and just keep on switching. Um,
Yeah,
I think it's generally good to try out different decks, but if you're always switching between event to event, you might not get to the point where you're really mastering the deck and actually utilizing it to its full potential.
yeah, and like, if it is a clear best deck, like for example, right now everyone thinks Django Target Town is the best deck. Then you have a different thing. You have to start thinking about the mirrors, which is a different element. Or everyone that tries to counter you, like when we went to Copenhagen the first time with Boba Green,
Mm,
because it was the universal best deck at the time. We'd been playing it for a while though, knowing it before, but the
yeah,
event was later. But by then, some of the Danish people had found like a counterweight to it.
yeah,
to play Boba red or yellow just full space
Yeah.
because the green one couldn't really keep up. So just because something is the best when you're looking at it doesn't mean that it will be that 3 or 4 weeks from
Yeah.
now. So like all these content creators or YouTubers, when they say something is really good, uh, check that it's also relevant. So it's not from 2 3 weeks ago, because it could like mean a lot of difference to the list or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So um, we've kind of agreed upon that it's better to be a good pilot than to have the best list, kind of, and have some experience with the deck. But if we
Yeah.
are approaching the end of a meta and maybe you have more knowledge, then you can kind of try to predict a little bit more. Maybe you know you're going to a place where you expect a lot of one archetype. Okay, you know here there's a lot of, for instance, blue-green villainy players.
Yeah.
Then you can consider, okay, maybe I have played multiple of these decks. Maybe I'll pick this because it would fit more into that meta.
Yeah, and everything is, as you said, like a little bit also about how much time do you have to do the switch. Uh,
Yeah,
for example, we were playing Anakin Blue, set 3, basically the whole first 1.5 month, almost a half.
yeah,
Like um, both of us all basically almost played that entirely,
yeah,
but I made a call later thinking that Han Yellow is probably going to be the best
mm,
around Christmas. I took the time to start playing it. Didn't work out in Copenhagen, which was the first event, but it turned out to the time I invested in it turned out to be enough to make it work in Stockholm and Oslo
yeah,
on the upcoming tournaments. So you can of course switch to something uh, based by results afterwards, but you need to know that you have some sort of time to actually
yeah,
uh, get warm with the deck,
yeah,
because most of the decks have quite a lot of layers, and it's both a gift and a horror with all these many very competitive decks. It's that you need to practice against a lot of different decks, so you need to play even more games to actually know what happens.
yeah,
uh,
yeah. And the last point when you're kind of preparing your deck is really the tuning of it.
yeah.
Figuring out, okay, maybe you found a leader-based combination, a type of deck you like, but what cards are you gonna change? How are you gonna tune it and finalize the list exactly before submission?
Yeah, and that can be like deciding which card to cut completely from the deck. In the end, some cards is like, is this a 2 off, a 3 off, or a 1 off?
Yeah,
Because some cards are just amazing, but they are not amazing in enough matchups. So maybe you run 2 and just put 1 to the sideboard, uh, because in those few you really want it. Um,
yeah,
so I think that is. And in the tuning process, a lot about of it is to decide what do I want to be good against in from the start, and then have a sideboard that fixes some of the matchups where you're not good in
yeah,
the start. That's usually how I approach it, at
yeah,
least, to have a sideboard to fix some other matchups.
yeah. Were you on the episode, or was it Victor and Gustav maybe, where we talked about sideboarding?
Can't remember, but it could be.
Yeah,
I think I missed it. I
yeah.
think I missed it.
If you haven't listened to it and want to know more about sideboarding, check it out. It's a couple of weeks back, and then we talked about many different approaches and like how to build it. Do you kind of think of your deck as 60 cards and then rather put
Yeah.
10 away that you don't necessarily want game one? And yeah,
Yeah, I remember that. Like, I know, I think you and Victor had quite different approaches to the sideboard. I don't remember the differences, but I remember it
yeah,
was interesting to listen,
yeah,
because you had different approaches,
yeah,
which was nice.
yeah,
But yeah, I usually use the sideboard to fix a matchup that is more rare to for me to encounter,
yeah,
but it's still. Uh, it's still like it causes still as much of a problem that I need to respect it.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm not having a sideboard for a deck that is showing up one time out of 200, but like, um, so that's basically.
Yeah.
I would say for most decks, it might be fighting mid range and aggro first, and then fight control with the sideboard. I
Yeah.
think that's the most common way to build your sideboard
Yeah. Agreed.
in the simplest term.
Yeah. I think when you're building your deck, when you're preparing for these tournaments, don't respect other decks too much. Like,
Yeah,
first keep in mind what's your game plan, what's your win condition, how does your deck need to function in order to win games,
yeah,
because that's the first priority, and then you can think of how to handle threats from your opponent, or stop some disruptions that could ruin your game plan.
yeah. And that's a good thing, actually. What in your testing, you have to identify what is ruining your game plan.
Yeah.
What is the things that makes you lose,
Yeah.
and what do you need? Is there ways to fix it? Sometimes it's actually no good ways to fix it, so you have to say, I just hope I don't face this,
Yeah.
or say I'm hoping I'm getting lucky here because I'm not gonna get enough percentages by trying to fix my board, main board or sideboard for this matchup.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also an important way to design,
Yeah.
to find out those things as well.
Mm.
Don't put 10 cards in a sideboard for a matchup that increases you 3%.
Yeah. So, in the last days before going to your big tournament, when you're tuning the deck, if you have some knowledge about what you might face, as we talked about earlier, then you can kind of try
Yeah,
to tech a little bit for it,
yeah,
either by what you have in the side and main, or even some extra cards. Um, but
yeah,
I would generally advise, relatively early, print out your deck list, have everything prepared, but maybe bring those extra cards that you've thought about. And if you want to
yeah.
do a last minute change, you could always just use a pen and cross out something on the deck list and make an
And
addition.
add, yeah. Yeah, because sometimes the answers that you're searching for comes late.
Yeah.
That like in the practice, it might come from a tip or from someone you're facing that just, and you're like, oh, that is great. I need to apply this to my deck,
Yeah.
because you play the same color or something. Uh, so yeah, completely agree on that part.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've covered most now. We had, before traveling there, accommodating on the day, and prepping your deck. Um, Prices, is that something maybe we should mention too? For these bigger events, there usually is displays of cards,
Yep.
and I would say they are often possible to sell. So if
Yes.
you've already have your full deck or a sizable collection, then personally I would definitely go for selling instead of just ripping packs.
Yeah. Unless you're searching for something or you just like ripping. If you like ripping packs, just like you just rip packs.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
um,
I'm of
uh,
course talking from the perspective of a poor student,
yeah,
and I guess most Star Wars
exactly.
Unlimited players are adults with the full salaries and
Yeah,
$100
but like
bills.
I agree. Like in my case, I'm trying to sometimes think: is it like if I can sell this, I can go to another tournament.
Exactly.
Basically, if
Yeah.
I see there's a price support, now this is pretty high, but like say for 700 euros, like, or I can crack it and maybe get value things for 200 euros.
Yeah.
Uh, then maybe if I sell it, I can book some tickets to go to another
Yeah.
location. And for me, it's more fun to go to more of these events than cracking the packs.
Yeah.
Uh, but if you find cracking the packs more fun, then you go
Yeah.
for that.
Always. Yeah. And I think, me personally, my favorite part of the game is the community, meeting the people, and going to these events is at least how I do it. So
Yeah,
love spending my money on that. Like, yeah, I would much rather pay a lot to go to an event than buy a box.
yeah. Obviously, we need to buy some to support the game, so it still survives.
Yeah,
But yeah, there is like now we're talking about the winnings. Like if you win things, many of us when you go to an event, you already have your deck right,
yeah,
so you might not need something more to that deck. Then this is. It's also good because you're gonna sell it a little bit cheaper than the stores usually, so it gets out there to someone who needs it, to someone who wants it when you sell it. So
yeah,
it's it's not being greedy
yeah,
by any means.
yeah.
It's just giving.
Yeah,
But yeah, and there is usually boxes in the prices, especially here in Europe, because we are a lot of the countries have strict rules about giving out money in pricing to card games and stuff like that,
yeah,
because it's a bit associated with poker stuff. So there is a little bit harder here in Europe than in the States. But and on the FFG events, there is also a lot of these promo cards that can be really valuable, but also very nice to collect
yeah,
yourself as your a remembrance from that tournament, for
yeah.
example.
That's super nice. And then one thing I also thought about, if you plan on going to these events, there's a lot of things to plan. Reach out to people. Go on the discords and ask, oh, is anyone else going? Maybe we could travel together, book a hotel together. Like, use the community and yeah, get in touch with people, because then it's even more fun when you show up and you meet people and say hello and like, oh, you're this guy from Discord or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. So especially like if we talk about Lille, that's going to be bigger.
Yeah,
Me and Jonah is going to be there. Uh, to reach out if you are there alone, basically, and maybe wants to play a little bit or go out and eat. Maybe you can just tag along to some people. So just reach out in the Discord,
yeah,
and we'll see. Uh, we're probably all going to be very likely want to play games, but
yeah. We talked about making a like a forum like we have for the decks for tournaments too. Could be nice
yeah,
just to have some threads so you can plan and ask, oh, is anyone going to this PQ? Or this way it will be easier to also see what events are upcoming.
definitely.
All right, then. That concludes the end of the tournament prep.
Guide. Feel free to disregard anything
Yeah.
and tell us if that brought you a result.
Yeah. Are you excited for the upcoming weeks, Adam?
Yes, actually, very excited to. It feels like it was so long
Yeah.
ago, the Oslo tournament, but
Yeah.
it's only like a month, right?
What? That's wild.
I think it's like wasn't it like around okay, one month and a week, something like that. But
Okay.
because I moved on this, but not it felt like longer. It felt
Yeah.
like longer.
It feels wow. Well,
But yeah, really happy because it's gonna be Malmö, then 2 weeks Skövde, and then I think it's 2 or 3 weeks Lille. So
yeah.
yeah, definitely really funny.
Yeah.
And
Rip
how about
my
you?
thesis.
Yeah, that's how you feel.
Yeah.
No, are you also excited
Yeah, yeah,
about
super
all this?
excited. Yeah.
About your road trip to
Yeah.
Europe, or multiple road trips,
Yeah.
actually, in your case?
Yeah, it's gonna be very fun. I'm going all the way down to south of France through Amsterdam and Paris, and then on my way back visiting my grandfather actually in Germany. So I'm gonna have
Nice.
some stops, and yeah, it's gonna be great. Hopefully, I won't have too many trains being cancelled or delayed, so
Yeah.
I end up
And
at the right
we're
place
all
at the right
waiting
time.
for the Nordic takedown ranking of train stations in Europe. Which
Oh,
one is the best? It's like, where do you really want to go? Is it Hamburg, or is it
we
like
should. Oh, I
something?
know. We should have like some bonus environmental points on the
Yeah.
TNT rankings.
Oh yeah, if you've been on these locations, bump up a little bit, like get an extra
If
100
you,
points.
yeah, if you get some points, yeah. Oh well,
All right.
that's it for today.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for this episode, Jonah.
Yeah.
And
Thanks
thank everyone for listening.
Yeah, and may the force be with you.
May the force be with you.